The number one reason a person should start a business is because you think you have a product or a service or idea that will help other people. We really thought our fund would be a very good fund for people to invest in. I really thought nothing could beat this fund, and we were doing it privately in my family's accounts and doing so well. We wanted to share it with people, and we wanted to make it easy to just put $2,000 in that.
Welcome to the Up Your Average podcast, where Keith and Doug give no-nonsense advice to level up your life. So buckle up and listen closely to Up Your Average.
Good morning. It is great to have another week with our friends today. Caleb, how are you?
I am doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. We are in college season where Doug is off to Calvin College with Warner to do a university visit. I guess that's what they call it. Did you ever do one of those, Caleb?
I did not. I toured IUPUI on a field trip in high school, but that was about the extent of mine.
So you pretty much knew what you were thinking you wanted to do, so you didn't see the need in breaking away and going and doing a college campus visit.
Right. I think I only applied to Murray, so it's pretty easy.
Now, when you applied, Ja Morant was a senior at Murray, or he was was he playing at Murray State at that point?
No, I think he got drafted in 2020.
Okay.
So a year
there you go.
Before me.
Those of you that aren't sports fans, Ja Morant's probably the claim to fame for Murray State basketball over the years, and we wish him the best. He made a few elementary mistakes a couple years ago, and hopefully he's cleaned that up. Well, friends, I want you to meet my friend, Bob Auer. Bob, it's a pleasure to have you on Up Your Average today. How's your day going?
Great. Thanks for having me this morning.
Bob and I go back many years. His dad met me from afar at a Christian businessmen's meeting years ago, and I said a pun or a joke that his dad always liked, and then his dad and I reconnected in 2006 at a Hardee's in Fishers, and that connection really brought a rich friendship to my life. His dad has been a real blessing to me, and then I don't think I knew you before I met your dad, Bob.
No,
but
we met in 2008.
Okay. Yeah, so I would walk from my house to the Hardee's, and I was kind of doing a science project of what retirement looked like, and there were a group of retirees there every day, and your dad was in there, but he sat alone from those, and I was just observing and having small conversations, and then I had started a wonderful one with your dad. We've been discussing the benefit of entrepreneurship, the benefit of even doing a side gig where you don't necessarily have to jump feet in to start a business, but maybe you could do something small. Caleb, you started your first entrepreneurial experience when you were how old, do you think?
It was probably middle school, sometime around then. So what was that, 10 to 12 years old?
Okay. And you probably didn't even realize you were doing a business. You probably just thought this is a way to make some money or something.
Right. Yeah.
And so the idea of doing a business can be intimidating in and of itself. And then to jump in either as a side deal where you're just making a little bit of money, or you jump in full throttle that I'm going to start a business and it's going to make it or else. And today, that's why we have Bob here. He is our most recent conversation of somebody mid-career jumping off the cliff into small business ownership. Bob, would you tell us a little bit about what that looked like for you and the decision grid that got you going?
Well, I had got, I'll just say I was probably very content, very happy in the career I had, which was financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. It started as a company people maybe knew as Dean Witter Reynolds, which was just a good. We weren't as flashy as like a Merrill Lynch, I would say, and we weren't as particular in taking clients. Like Merrill Lynch wanted a certain dollar value, and we would take you if you just had a $2,000 IRA. And
now let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you for a second. Now, when I wanted to get into this business, Dean Witter, I think, was owned by Sears and Roebuck. So did you ever work out of a Sears store?
Absolutely. And that was part of the whole gig, was as a brand new rookie broker and trying to attract new clients, you have to cold call, which, it's not very popular with the public, but that's what you have to do. You'd have to get on the phone and call, or you'd have to go work the Sears store, and it was mandatory. You could work it because there were like there was all state offices out there, and also the Dean Witter offices, and there were like 3 empty offices, and you could sit. One person had to be there, so you were scheduled like I think only one day a month. But I would work all the 4 stores in Indianapolis. There was Lafayette Square, Washington Square, Greenwood, and Castleton Mall. And you would pick up, people would be in there. Our offices were always right next to the either the Kenmore washing machines or the Craftsman tool cart. So if it was near the washing machines, you'd kind of get the lady shoppers, and you try to get them to open an IRA. And if you were, the other office was over by the tools. So
Caleb, you're nodding. I see you nodding your head as though you understand. But Sears and Roebuck, I don't think was a thing during your lifetime. Do you know what Sears and Roebuck is?
Vaguely, I know I don't know if I've ever actually been in one, but the one over on Allisonville and 116th, that's a Planet Fitness now, was my memory. And then also,
that was just a hardware store. It wasn't a true Sears. It would be something.
Mall one as well.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Bob. I'm just trying to point out to our viewers that you and I are old, and Caleb is acting like he knows what he's talking about.
We're really on a tangent here. They were the largest retailer in the world for quite a while, and they were the original Amazon. They could have had the Amazon business. They started as mail order, before you could order on a computer, but you had to order by mail, and it was delivered to you. And then they opened the actual retail stores, and they became the largest retailer in the world. And then that was before Kmart came, and then Walmart came, and then Amazon came. But the largest retailer in the world was also a Dow Jones 30 stock, which is pretty cool. And was like GE, General Motors. I mean, so I worked for the company when they were really something.
And so when people would go into Sears and Roebuck, when you were manning a Dean Witter office, it could be anybody from any socioeconomic situation. You wouldn't even known. It could be somebody poor, it could be somebody very, very wealthy going to Sears in the day, right?
Oh, absolutely. You might I opened an IRA with a farmer. It was a very small IRA, and he was worth a lot. And he was my client for 20 years just from that contact. It was quite a setup, and I was just trying to explain where Dean Witter was. They would take any account, and that evolved when it became Morgan Stanley. Though they wanted only larger accounts, and that I think was a real shame. And that was actually part of the decision to go start my own business, because in the mutual fund business, you can set what size account you're willing to take, and we'll take an account up, as little as $2,000. You can start in our little process, and then add as little as $100. But that's true with almost every mutual fund. That's not unique to us. But anyway, so the point was, at Morgan Stanley over 20 years, and was very comfortable there, and had become a vice president. And my dad had been investing with me for the whole 20 years, and he had taught me an investing discipline that I thought was worthy to share with other people. It had been totally private and almost, I want to say, secret, even though he would probably shared it with you when he saw you at parties, right, Keith? Anybody that would listen, he would tell them about it. And it had done so well, I approached him. I said, would you be okay if we made this a mutual fund? And I would leave Dean Witter and just start it as a new business. So that was the start.
So would it be safe to say that when you left Morgan Stanley, you were at the top of your game? Like you were having some of your best years ever?
I was in the top 10% of the company, and you get awarded different levels. I was a vice president, and I had 600 clients, and that's what you call your book of business. And it was a very solid book, and my production and business was solid, like very smooth every year. So.
So you weren't necessarily looking for a bigger and better deal then at that moment, I gather. Like if you were doing fine.
I actually thought I would probably stay there. I mean, I started there when I was 25, I thought, and I was now like 45, 46. I thought I'll easily retire here. It is there's a friend of mine, Richard, that's still there. He's been there 54 years. And, wow. So it's something that once you get established and you have your client base, and you're always adding clients and losing clients to death, or they move away, or you have a bad market and they get mad at you, and that just happens. But it is a great career. So I had no intention to leave, but this opportunity came up, and I thought, I'd like to start the fund, and I didn't know anything about running a mutual fund. And matter of fact, I wasn't even sure it could be done by an individual, because all the mutual funds that I knew were run by much larger companies. Like the company I was leaving had a family of mutual funds, Morgan Stanley funds. All the competitors, Merrill Lynch had their fund, Schwab, and then you had all the other funds like Fidelity was very well known. Vanguard was up and coming, and now is kind of the 800-pound gorilla. Vanguard's approach was different than what our approach as a little fund. Vanguard's approach is that you can't, I'm not going to say every fund, but how they grew their businesses, they said to all their customers or potential customers, you can't beat the market. So Vanguard said, we're just going to index to all the different markets, be it an international, U.S., small cap, large cap, mid cap. They came out with an index fund for everything. And they just said, well, you'll do average, and you'll be happy doing average, and we'll charge you very little to do average. And that flies against us. We might not beat the market, but we're trying to beat the market every year. So.
Caleb, did you have something you wanted to ask Bob before I jump in?
I feel like I kind of touched on it a little bit with when you moved to Morgan Stanley, that they stopped opening up smaller accounts, but was there any other catalyst for you to jump ship and start your own company?
The main catalyst was we had a sales meeting at Morgan Stanley one day, and there was a new young broker that had been in the office like about 2 months, and we had become friends. I actually felt like I was kind of mentoring him. And I don't know why we sat together that day, but the sales meeting was a mutual fund meeting. And I said to him, I really enjoyed that meeting, but man, I wish I could just start my own mutual fund. And he said, really, are you interested in doing that? And I said, oh, absolutely. But I'm not sure how, or even how to market it, or how to do all the legal stuff, like through the SEC and all the administration. I just want to run the fund. And he said, well, my brother is in Washington, D.C., is a mutual fund expert. Wow. And you should call him. And that gentleman's name was Dan Sondheim. And I said, a mutual fund expert? What do you mean? He says he works for the leading company that helps independent funds market themselves and launch. And I'm like, what is the chance that this young kid, brother, much older brother, and I said, yeah, I'd like to talk to him. I said, will you give me his number? And he goes, oh, yeah, sure. He gives me his number. I go back to my desk. In 5 minutes, the phone rings, and it's his brother. He went back and told his brother my number. And his brother called me, and he said, I hear you're going to start a mutual fund. I go, whoa, whoa, whoa. And that really put the ball in motion. It was almost like a higher power, a God thing of like, we need to push this guy a little bit and give him some help. And I had already done a little research on it. And there were that was very instrumental to have this gentleman call. And he wanted to hear what the discipline would be. And we already kind of had a little track record because we had been investing like this for 20 years, this very cut and paste and very strict discipline that we don't change from. And he was very encouraging. He's like, you can do this, this is what I do. I don't work for the Fidelities or the Vanguards or the big houses. I work for the mom and pop. Maybe they have one or two funds, and I help them market and grow, and I'd be willing to help you too. For a fee, obviously. He wanted me to hire him, which we ended up doing.
That's really cool.
So that was instrumental. And then right as we're in Indianapolis here, the suburb of Indianapolis also had one of the most unique, right in downtown Indianapolis, a little company that helped do the administration of mutual funds. And it was a company called Unified Funds. And what they did was you could run the fund, but they did the back office. So they had like 50 employees. And you need legal, you need accountants, you have to account for the money every single night to the penny. And then strike a net asset value. They do all that for you. You have to have a custodian that holds the assets. You can't hold it like, oh, I got it over here in my personal account. It's got to be like way arm's length and totally safe. Like all I can do is move the investments. I can't withdraw money or I can't even put money in. But and Unified Funds does that. And that's what they specialized in. And then I'm like, well, but all that comes at a cost too. I learned later. So, but those two things kind of got the ball rolling, right? Kind of gave me confidence to leave a very good paying job. I'm not boasting about this, but this was 17 years ago. It was over $200,000 a year. And that's hard to walk away from that because that's pretty much going to be coming in every single year, as long as the market just kind of did pretty good and you did well for your clients.
Yeah.
So you weren't discontent with what you were doing, and
I loved it. I was a true company man. Other brokers had kind of come and gone, and there's nothing wrong with changing firms if you really think it's going to be better for your clients. But at the end of the day, a lot of the firms had just kind of morphed into the same thing. And it was hard to say that they were any firm had an edge for a client. But sometimes the brokers would get a little paycheck to move and bring their clients over. And that was offered to me many times. But I loved Morgan Stanley, the Dean Witter and the Morgan Stanley thing. And I would just say to the recruiters, my clients aren't for sale. I'm not for sale. I'm going to stay here. And this all came up very unexpected. So this business idea, the stock market was booming. This was in 2004, 5, 6, 7 was a really good bull market. in 2008 or in 2009, we had a terrible, terrible market, but that we didn't know that yet. All I saw was 2007. All my accounts were at record highs. My income was at a record high. And I thought this might be a good time to start this fund, but little did I know what was going to happen when I started the fund. That's another story and question.
Yeah. So we're this particular topic, we're trying to encourage people that are considering starting a business that you can do it as part of kind of the message that we're telling them. And I think over the years, what I've observed, Bob, is that regulations and rules and things can become intimidating. And you jumped feet first into a heavily regulated area, into an area that really tries to keep small businesses out of there. And in my first job out of college, I worked for Texas Instruments. My first boss was a guy named Mike Hames, and he called me in a conference room one day and gave me probably the greatest advice in business that I could use at that point in life. And I think Texas Instruments had 66,000 employees at that point, something around there. And he was trying to light a spark beneath me to get me to be more aggressive. And he said, Keith, you will get, it's easier to get forgiveness around here than permission. And he was just telling me, go do something. And I think in a highly regulated kind of world that we're in today, it could be a barrier of entry into business for people if they get overwhelmed by thinking they got to do everything first before they jump in. Did you run into that? I know it seemed like there was almost a divine provision for you taking care of some of those things up front, but did you sense that kind of stress getting that thing started?
Yes, because there's mutual funds are extremely highly regulated, and there's a lot of expense to just the launching of the mutual fund. So the unified funds would prepare a estimated cost analysis so you know what you're getting into. So not only was my income going to drop to zero if I left. I called Morgan Stanley the mothership. They both had this ticker symbol MS, but I called it, there was a lot of comfort in the mothership. And to just run around and say, hey, I've got my own mutual fund with your name on it was $250,000, whether it works or not. I mean, that's just kind of on day one, that's what you're out. And so it's not like I'm just going to become my own plumber and I get a truck for $20,000 and some tools. And then, there's an expense to almost any business. Even if you open a Kool-Aid stand, you've got some upfront expense, but $250,000 with then zero income and no promise of what might happen was a little salty, but we decided to do it. And I have to give also credit. There was another Morgan Stanley broker, two brokers, Dave and Ron, who had left and started their own investment practice, much like you have, Keith, what you would call a registered investment advisor. And they had done that 2 years prior, and they had asked me to come along and bring my book over. But I'm like, no, I'm happy here. I'm not ever leaving here. Well, then now 2 years later, I'm talking to them, hey, I'm going to start this mutual fund. And they're like, we want to start a mutual fund. And I'm like, well, it takes a lot to do it, but I'll show you how to. They go, no, we want to do it with you. I'm like, nah, I'm going to do this myself. And they said, no, you really should do that with us. And I said, well, what are you going to help me with? Like, it's $250,000. They said, well, we'll go in 20%. Well, we'll be 20% owners. And I said, okay, so you'll put up 50, I'll put up the 200, and then what else are you going to do? Because I'm going to have to do all the work. They said, we'll give you, in our practice, we've just signed a new lease. We have all this office space and extra computers, and we have extra help, like, secretarial help, and we have extra staff, and we can add you to our health plan. And I'm like, well, this could all work out really good. And because I needed a place, I didn't want to run it out of my house. So I said, okay, you guys put up the 50 and then let's do it. And you can be 20%. And they said, well, here's the problem. We don't have the 50. And I said, you don't have the 50. And they said, but we got the offices and everything. And we can pay as we go on the health insurance. And I said, okay, let's do it. And I said, but the deal is I get free rent forever and free health insurance forever. And you have to set the computers up. And so you do all the IT forever. And they said, okay, that's a deal. And that deal is still going today, 17 years later. So I guess that would be another tip of starting a business. You might lose a couple percent of the ownership. So if you're all like, hey, I got to control it all. But if you can give up a little control and bring other experienced people, and they said, not only will we give you a place that you can sit every day and the computer will turn on and the email will work and all that, and you'll have a copy machine and all this, and it'll look like a real office. If a client comes in, we will help you market the fund because it's in our interest because we are 20% owners and would, get 20% of the fee of the fund. And they did, true to their word, they helped us market the fund as well. So I guess that would be a one good tip to tell a prospective person looking to launch a business is you give up some control, but if you're with good partners and you can team up, it splits the risk and you don't always have all the good ideas. You're just one person. So there is a lot of power in synergy in bringing other people into the fold. So I credit my two partners. My dad was very supportive and rooting me on, and that always helps a person. And then I had this unified funds in my corner who had done this 100 times. And I had this Mr. Sondhelm in Washington, D.C., the brother of a friend who was also teaching me.
What a great on-ramp into your business. And I don't know if we've got a little bit of time that we can chase this, but the fund started and off you went. And I think of the movie Airplane, there's scenes in there that they're in the air traffic control tower and they're like, I picked a bad time to quit doing X, Y, and Z. And so one of the things I know, Bob, is that adversity leads to perseverance. Perseverance leads to proven character, and then proven character leads to a confidence or a hope that doesn't disappoint. And so you got just in the door in time to get punched in the face by Mr. Market. Do you want to talk about not necessarily just the adversity, but your attitude of perseverance to allow you to see the success that you've seen in the last couple of years?
Yeah. So I left Mothership July of 2007 because it takes 6 months to launch a mutual fund, or it did back then. I don't know how long it takes today. So I needed a 6-month ramp to get it ready with a goal of being online by December 31st of 2007. And ready to go with a ticker symbol, ready for the public to invest. You have to get on different platforms because how can the public invest? You want to be on some of these big platforms like Charles Schwab and Fidelity, and that takes all time to get this registered and going. And we did that, and I had a drop dead date of December 31st. We actually launched on December 28th, so we made it 3 days before, but nobody knew about it. And we had Mr. Sondhelm in DC. He was rearing up to help us market this. And so we get some investors. My father put some money in as he had promised because we're going to do exactly what he had been doing anyway. And what ended up happening, it was pretty smooth sailing for till about June of 2008. And then starting in June of 2008, the market started to crack. And you pick a strike price. All funds, you can start at $15 a share, $5 a share. A lot of funds start at $10 a share, which is what we started at. And I think the fund had worked its way up to maybe 10 and a quarter, 10.25, maybe we're up 2 or 3%. The market was pretty flat, but up a little through June, and we were up a little, not beating the market, not really hurting us. And then the bottom fell out. and the housing crisis started where house prices were dropping everywhere. People had bought all these investment homes in Florida. They were just going to the bank, giving the banker the keys. It got so bad, a brokerage firm, Lehman Brothers, that I think had been in business since the Civil War and had been through depressions, they went bankrupt. And then General Motors went bankrupt. I mean, if General Motors goes back, I mean, not that they were bulletproof, but and my mothership stock, which I still had some shares in, I had sold a lot of it. Luckily, it had been $100 a share back in the summer of '07. It was $6. And they were talking that mothership may go bankrupt. And if the Japanese Mitsubishi came in and gave them a couple billion to keep them, they were literally, their books wouldn't square over the weekend. And it was and the fund that was at over $10 went to $3.50. And boy, were customers very upset. I was very depressed. The market had dropped over 50%, but we were down 65%. And it wasn't, our process was flawed. It was, our process focuses on smaller companies, and smaller companies dropped even, I'm saying the big S&P 500 was down 50%. These are the strongest companies maybe in the world. And so what do you think the little Acme widgets are down when General Motors is going bankrupt? And so that was as soon as we opened our Kool-Aid stand, we had about 6 months of good time, and then that was it.
So then, I'm only smiling because I've got a little tear in my ear and my eye, feeling your pain, because I personally went through a bout of depression during that market cycle because it was hard, and so you lost a lot of your customers. You got some in, then you lost them, and now we're in 2020.
I lost a lot of my friends.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Okay.
They thought I did it on purpose. Like you knew it was going to crash, and I had no idea.
Yeah, that's a part of the investment business. It's hard to explain to somebody else the personal connections that may be at risk or seemingly at risk. But so you keep your head up, you keep moving forward, and let's jump to 2020 and say where is the Auer Fund in 2020, and bring us from 2020 to 2025 then.
2020 was actually darker than 2008 and 2009 because we had done with my two partners, Ron and Dave, helping. We had raised $200 million in the fund at the peak before the market unraveled. And then the market crashed, we recovered, but then when COVID hit, the market had another crash, which hit us very, very hard. And we lost, not only were we going down in share price, we were also hemorrhaging customers, clients. And mutual funds, not like what I did before, where I had the face-to-face and I could hold people by talking to them and trying to calm them down and have them take a longer perspective, which is usually a good thing to do in the market. I can't see the clients. The client's at Schwab, and I don't even know who the client is. So it's a very private transaction when you buy them. The mutual fund company probably does not know who you are. Only the custodian of your money knows who you are. They then share your name with a private company that mails you a prospectus and an update, but I don't know who my 500 clients are, so I can't even talk to them. That's very frustrating. As a business owner, not knowing your customers. So I would say I basically only have one customer, and that's the fund. I do the best I can for the fund. But jump to 2020. Our assets dropped to under 12 million, which is not a viable mutual fund.
So you went to 200 million or above at some point along the way, and then now you're down at 12 million.
Yeah, in March of 2020, we ended with 12 million, and I was thinking we would probably have to shutter the fund because at 12 million, you just don't, the fee that you're charging doesn't cover your expenses. So, but what ended up happening is the performance of the fund did pretty good. We did not give up, and we grew it back to about 60 million as of last month, and our performance was fantastic. I don't want to sit and talk about the fund. We're not here to talk about that. But we basically took the fund to where on the ranking services, it was a top ranked fund. And as we sit here today, it's a 5-star fund on one of the major ranking services.
That's why I wanted to introduce you to our friends, Bob. I want to have you back to talk about investing and financial principles. I think that you can bring great value and help up everybody's average. But running a business, it tugs at your soul. It takes everything that you have, right? And the tenacity it takes to go through the difficult times and to endure. A lot of times people don't make it through the first difficulty, right? Like they're just like, this isn't worth it. I'll just go work for somebody else. And we haven't had tons of client money with you over the years, but we've stayed with you. We've cheered you on. And one of my highlights, I think it was 2024. I don't think it was this year, was you and I were having lunch and you showed me your 5-star standing, and you were, I think, top in your category, either the top fund or top 1 or 2% or something like that. But we were the top. Yeah. So 900. Yeah. So to have gone through this whole journey with you and watched you through that, I'm just so proud of you. I can't even tell you how much I am that you endured and got to where you are today. And that's why I wanted to share a little bit about being an entrepreneur, taking risk. I mean, you didn't know it was going to pay off, right? Like up till 5 years ago, it looked like it was a bad decision, I'd say, right?
Yes. And that's where opening up and being open to other people, had I not had my partners, Dave and Ron, where they were paying, their business was still doing well. They were covering the rent, they were covering the IT, they were covering my benefits, and that makes a big difference. But yeah, they had been taking 20% all along, but it was well worth it to have some stability. Where if I was doing it all myself, I don't think I could have done it. So to spread out a little and bring other people that are experts in other things and let them do their thing. I'm a big proponent of that. So we don't still keep Dan Sondhelm though. He was charging us $10,000 a month, and we had to cut that. And now he's contacting us again that we're doing better. We might negotiate something and try to start marketing the fund again. But that was an expense that when you only have 12 million, you're not going to be paying.
Yeah. No. Well, I am thankful for your friendship. I'm thankful for your life. Caleb, any final questions before I wrap this up?
You talk about how mutual fund industry is super highly regulated, and talked about the Kool-Aid stand. You can just go to the store, get some Kool-Aid, and get started. But what are 2 or 3 reasons why someone else should start their own business, either highly regulated or the small mom and pop?
I think the number one reason a person should start a business, it's usually they do it for the income or the independence, but I think the number one reason is because you think you have a product or a service or idea that will help other people. And I think if you start with that precept is the main, and we really thought our fund would be a very good fund for people to invest in. And I maybe didn't cover that. I really thought nothing could beat this fund, and we were doing it privately in my family's accounts and doing so well. We wanted to share it with people, and we wanted to make it easy to just put $2,000 in that. And so our heart was in the right place. And so I think to answer your question is that the reason that you really want to do the Kool-Aid stand is because I have the best Kool-Aid or lemonade not that I want to make a quick $5, but this Kool-Aid and lemonade that I make, people, when they taste it, they go, wow, what is in this? This is so fresh, the lemons or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think if you have that, that is your motivation. The income and the independence and the joy and the satisfaction will come. But if you're just trying to scam someone because you think you can make a fast buck, that's not a good business. But I think the best businesses are something that makes other people's life better and easier. And that was truly what we thought we were doing, even though we harmed people in spite of our very best efforts. But it was partly due to the market, but it's also our job to help navigate the market. And when right out of the gate, the first year or two, we did worse than the market, and that's not our goal. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah.
If you really have something that you think somebody's going to benefit from, you might have a good business idea, and people will usually pay for things that benefit them.
All right. That's good.
Well, Bob, thanks for hanging out. And I want to encourage you that are watching that if you've got an idea, maybe it's a family idea like Bob's, and you want to jump out there and try something, we just want to cheer you on. And hopefully today has helped you think better and up your own average. And we'll see you guys real soon. Take care.